All right, folks, for the last 3 years, actually almost 4 years, next month we'll celebrate the 4th anniversary of News One Now. We have been focused on the dearth of minority talent in Silicon Valley. Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. has led a campaign against Silicon Valley, not just for the high-tech jobs there, but for the 60% of jobs in Silicon Valley that don't involve STEM. So what in the world is going on? A newly released report, though, shows how bad it is. Their report by the Ascend Foundation finds that race was a more significant factor than even gender as an impediment to climbing the management ladder in Silicon Valley. But this is a fight we cannot ignore.
Tech is the next big industrial revolution, right? And to have a whole group of people excluded from that revolution disenfranchises that group.
What we have now is a gap between the promise and the stated values and what actually are the opportunities.
Yeah, I didn't know that Silicon Valley existed until I was 24 and had the great fortune to move out here to go to business school. And I didn't want other folks to make that same mistake. This is a really rich innovation economy with tons of wealth creation and folks fundamentally changing the world. And I felt there was an amazing opportunity to get, for all intents and purposes, the greatest consumer demographic in the world, have the opportunity to be the best producer demographic in the world. What does that mean for America's competitiveness? What does that mean for, Black and Latino kind of opportunities in the future? I think it's one of the greatest economic opportunities in my life.
Now, let me say this again, okay, it's just so you understand. 60% of all jobs in Silicon Valley have nothing to do with engineering, have nothing to do with science. So beyond that, what Silicon Valley is doing, they are flat out ignoring black advertising firms, marketing firms. They're ignoring all the other areas where African Americans and Latinos could be working. And so you can't have the argument that you don't have enough folks who are majoring in STEM when 60% of your jobs, the high-paying jobs in Silicon Valley, had nothing to do with that. Joining us on the phone from Austin, Texas, is Brian Williams, the diversity coordinator with Capital Factory at Google. Brian, this obviously is an issue because when you look at wealth creation in this country, when you look at income inequality and wealth inequality, what it speaks to, again, historically, when you have people of color who have been frozen out and left out of these sectors. We saw that when it came to Wall Street. We saw it when it came to the explosion of 401ks as well as other wealth means in the 70s. We saw what happened even in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s when African Americans were frozen out of the housing sector. And so when you're frozen out also Silicon Valley and people say, oh no, but we're so liberal, we give to the UNCF and we give to the NAACP. Yeah, but your $10,000 check means nothing when African Americans can't get any of these jobs that can produce millions and millions of dollars.
Absolutely. Everything you're saying is right on the money. The fact of the matter is there is not the merit-based reality out in Silicon Valley that we are saying that it is. A report just came out from the Ascend Foundation just this week that highlighted that Silicon Valley really hasn't made very much progress when it comes to diversity employment, particularly when it comes to moving up the ranks for all different types of minority groups. African Americans, Latinos, and Asian Americans are all not seeing the benefits of what should be the meritocracy of Silicon Valley. So that is locking our people out of potential social change that we could see through our ingenuitive ideas, since we tend to solve problems that affect our lives. So being left out of the Silicon Valley employment stream and investment stream is causing us to not be able to realize the fullness of our potential as minorities in America.
And I want you to speak to this because I need people to understand clearly this point. We talk about what it means. And you don't have to talk about your particular deal, but give people a sense of the wealth that is being generated by folks who are 20s and 30s, and whether it's stock options, whether it's the capital that allows for them then to be able to fund other things. And so when we talk about our HBCUs and supporting our institutions, this is a way to do it when you're able to reap this kind of money.
Absolutely, and I'm so glad you mentioned HBCUs. I'm currently standing on the campus of Houston-Tillotson University here in Austin, Texas. This is an HBCU literally downtown in one of the tech capitals of our country. And we're saying that we don't have a pipeline to get the people that we need. When someone gets hired at one of the tech companies, they usually enjoy benefits such as a really high salary, stock options like you mentioned before, but more importantly, credibility. The credibility to be able to jump out on your own and generate wealth on your own with the backing of the respect of being in that industry. So when we're denied access to the industry, we're not only losing out on the opportunity for income and options, but we're losing out on future opportunities through the respect of working at one of these firms. So there's a lot of waterfall that comes from us not being included at the levels that we should. However, there are people working to do things about this, one of which is a local gentleman. His name is Preston James from Div Inc. What he's doing is creating more tech entrepreneurs out of people who have good ideas that are black and brown. See, people like that have the answers that we need. So when we're looking at things that Google can do, Facebook can do, Twitter can do, they can partner with the Preston Jameses of the world, the National Black MBAs of the world, the NSBs of the world, the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers of the world. We have the talents. We have the ideas. What we lack is the opportunity because we're being overlooked.
Barbara, question.
Yes, I mean, I always find it crazy that in this area, in the DC metro area, you have a very robust percentage of people of color in the tech industry. Yet out in Silicon Valley, you have such a dwarf. What have you looked at this really interesting delta between these two areas, and what's the explanation for Silicon Valley when you have such a huge percentage here in the Washington, D.C. greater metro area?
I would say that what you're talking about extends even beyond D.C. When
Yes.
you look at Miami and Atlanta and Detroit, even here in Austin, different places, you're going to see different people of color who are not necessarily looking to jump out to the valley. There's a bunch of reasons. Some are economic. Many times we have to be very capital efficient. Like I said, that Roland, capital efficient. We got to be careful with our money in order to be able to make the most of it. So when we're talking about going to Silicon Valley, where that's the highest real estate value pretty much in the country, highest rents in the country, you can't go out there trying to raise money while also losing money hand over fist by just trying to live. We're smarter than that. We tend to stay where we are and look to see if we can find the opportunities where we lie. Also, tech companies in general tend to move the employees that they're interested in to the places where they need those employees. So when you don't see us there, in some cases it's because we're not coming, in some cases because we're not being attracted to that space. So we're finding ourselves in what Steve Goen calls the best of the rest. Cities that are not necessarily Silicon Valley but have just as much talent, just as much potential. And one of those cities is Washington, D.C., amidst many others.
Joseph.
A question to you. So I think that, again, if you look at what happens in Silicon Valley, if you look at anything in the tech sector, you see that people are often reaping the benefits of the windfall. Meaning that, again, people have had previous success, and then they've been able to funnel that success into that next big project, that next big idea. And so, again, I just want to know if you can speak to that issue about the fact that, again, because when you have individuals of color who have been locked out of their ability to generate that wealth now, and the compounding effect that that has, talking about the next generation and the next generation, when we talk about the fact that black individuals inherit less wealth.
Absolutely. I could use an excellent example that I'm sure we're all familiar with, Tesla and Elon Musk.
Yes.
Yeah.
He is one of the most foremost minds that we have. He made his money from PayPal.
Yep.
That was his tech startup. And once he made that exit, they sold PayPal. He started a company to build electric cars, and a plan to colonize Mars.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now imagine that. Imagine if that was an African American or Latinx individual. If they got that windfall, what type of problems would they be looking to solve? What type of solutions would we have in our society? What type of products would we have that service our needs? So that's where we're losing. Roland, you're exactly right. That is something, not only just wealth, but knowledge capital that can get passed from generation to generation to help us be a better country and better communities.
Real quick, question.
Yeah, and you touched on a little bit earlier about the solution, but I just want to go a little deeper. As Roland touched on, the economy is moving towards Silicon Valley jobs. GM, General Motors, is now outpaced by Uber. Uber's worth more than General Motors now. Same thing, Amazon's worth more than any brick and mortar store. So while the economy is moving towards Silicon Valley, and you said that black and Latinos are not being included in that, what really is the solution? Is it waiting for internal forces in Google and Silicon Valley, or something external that we can do to push this lever?
Well, I think it has to be approached from both sides. On one end, we have to have the VC and the Silicon Valley community reaching towards diverse organizations and diverse leadership. And on the other side, we need diverse individuals and leaders reaching towards Silicon Valley in a way that Silicon Valley receives. What I believe the issue is that Silicon Valley is looking for the best deals regardless. But they're not looking in our places where our best deals are, because I don't think that they're very cognizant or aware of how to connect with us properly. So I would say if there's a VC out there looking to connect with high potential, diverse entrepreneurs, they need to come talk to me. BrianAMWilliams.com. All I do is connect with people who should be connected to these types of institutions as best I can. So if you're interested in that, come find us. We will make it a point to put you in place with the right people so that you can invest in a diverse way and actually make impact beyond what you would make by pattern matching.
All right, so you said BrianAWilliams.com?
Brian AM, like AM PM, Brian AM Williams.
BrianAMWilliams.com.
That's right.
All right, Brian, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me.
All right, folks, up next, the NAACP sues the Commerce Department over the 2020 census. We'll tell you exactly what that's all about. Also, the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation held its 20th annual Spirit of Democracy Awards. Our cameras were there. We'll show you who the honorees were. 28 after the hour. News 1 now on TV 1.